Hey there, it's me Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access, link in the description. When she awoke, the room she was in was mostly dark. There was only a dim light. It was enough to see by. This room was different from the one she had woken up in. It was less hospital-like and more like a room that you might find in a hotel. Other than the bed, which was in the middle of the room, there was a dresser by the side of a window, a door near the dresser, another door on another wall, and a desk with a mirror on the same wall as the second door. Alexis got up and walked up to the mirror. When she got there and looked intently at the reflection, she received the shock of her life. She was the woman who had told her this would happen, the one who she had exploded at. She had also said she would be miserable, and that her family would for all intents and purposes disown her. Alexis dropped to her knees and began to cry. Ms. Walters chose that moment to come in. She did her best to console her, but Alexis was going to be unhappy for quite some time. 7 years later. Alexis stepped out of the bathroom where she had just finished her shower into her dark room. She was weeping softly, as she had for almost every morning for the last 7 years or so. Ever since she had woken up that first time. Ever since she had gone to her parents' home soon after the procedure and, exactly as the woman, the one who looked just like her, had said, her family had been angry, intolerant, and ashamed. She had been kicked out very quickly. For about a year, she had let her life fall to pieces. Her only friend had been Harriet Walters, the nurse who had been there from the start. They had lost touch when she had finally gotten on her feet again. This had come when she got a job with the government in a remote base, working as support staff for a very, very secret project, one that could possibly explain a few things. The goal of the project was to create a time machine that could send a person or object back in time. Forward in time was easy. All that was necessary for that was a spaceship that could travel very close to the speed of light. Going back was harder, but a few crack government physicists had thought they had it figured out. There was plenty of electronics work to be done, and Alexis was there to help do it. The project seemed to be close to success. She had believed it would from day one, if for no other reason than it explained the woman perfectly, or almost so. The woman had been her, in the not-too-distant future. She had come back in time. There were problems though, problems inherent in going backwards through time. Alexis saw the clock during her ruminations on the past, and realized she had to get moving. Her shift started shortly. She quickly threw on the project-labeled jumpsuit, cleaned up her appearance, picked up her equipment, and walked out into the hall, locking her door behind her. She walked down a maze of corridors and entered the main labs, where, standing in the middle of the vast, cavernous room, was the time machine itself, running itself off an advanced tokamak fusion reactor, which was a few rooms over. At the top of the mess of machinery and circuits and particle accelerators and other knickknacks she couldn't even begin to comprehend, was a small sphere. This was the chamber, from which a passenger would go backwards in time. Dr. Larson, the project director, was talking with Mr. Trent, her boss. Mr. Trent saw her, broke the conversation with Dr. Larson, and walked over to her. "You're a little late this morning," he said, coming up to her. "Sorry," she said, "I just got a little distracted." "That's all right," said Mr. Trent, who could never be angry with anyone for too long, and had great sympathy for her, even if it was from a distance. He was also one hell of an engineer. "There's a meeting in something over an hour and a half. You'll be called to the auditorium when the time comes over the loudspeaker," he said, reaching into his folder for her assignment. And, just as if on cue, the loudspeaker came to life, dispersing words of seeming gibberish, but really very technical language. Mr. Trent handed her her assignments for the day. "Here you go, Alexis. Nothing much today, just some minor repairs. Work is pretty much done, really, he said, then walked off. Alexis did the same, looking over her assignments for the day. And, about an hour and a half later, the loudspeakers called all workers into the massive auditorium that was used for mass briefings. Only once, at an earlier stage of the project, had the whole of the workforce been gathered. There were easily several thousand people here. Alexis took her seat and listened for the presentation to start. Dr. Larson stepped up soon afterwards. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be brief," he said, a statement that meant nothing since he hated to speak for a long time. "Project Timekeeper has achieved completion." With those words, the audience broke into a standing ovation. It lasted for 10 minutes despite Dr. Larson's efforts to continue. It finally ended soon after Dr. Larson, most likely at the advice of Dr. Taylor, another of the project's leaders, whispered something into Dr. Larson's ear with a smile, and Dr. Larson took a bow. There was a brief rise in the volume and intensity of the ovation, but it began to level off fairly quickly after that. Alexis herself had been cheering. Dr. Larson continued. "Project Timekeeper has been completed." There was a smattering of applause at this, during which Dr. Larson paused. It died off, and he continued, "And we are ready to begin testing. We want to begin testing ASAP so that we can control who gets to go first. If the bosses find out we're done too soon, they'll send an astronaut or something to do it. The project board has decided, however, to send someone, all conditions permitting, into the past the day after tomorrow. The identity of that person will be determined by lottery. Each of you gets to pick one 8-digit number, not beginning or ending with a 0, and the person who comes closest to the number the computers come up with will get to go. If there is a tie, as in two different numbers that are the same distance from the result, there will be a coin flip to decide the winner. You can enter your number at any terminal on the network. The program is called Lottery, that's lottery all letters in lowercase form. It takes your number as a command line argument in the terminal. It will tell you if the number is valid or not, or if it has been taken. Good luck to you all, he finished, and curtly turned away. Everyone tried to get up and leave at once to get to the nearest computer, or to get to their rooms. Alexis ran through the corridors among a large crowd, rushing to get back to her room. If she remembered correctly, she had left the terminal application up, online, and set to the base directory of the server. She had decided to use her birthday as her number, 10241973. She reached her room, unlocked it in record time. She was confident she would win. After all, that number had always been lucky for her. She had been chosen for the genetic replacement procedure with that number. Whether that could be called that lucky or not was up for debate, but it was a winning number. As Alexis shook the mouse, she found that the terminal app was indeed up and where she wanted it. She typed in the appropriate command and hit enter. The program returned a message saying that the number had been accepted for Harrison, Alexis L. She sat down on her bed and gave a sigh of satisfaction. As she scooted back on her bed, she heard the crumbling of paper in her pocket, as well as the rattling of a few tools in another pocket, and remembered that she still had work to do. If she worked fast, she could finish before lunch. The time until lunch passed quickly, and she hadn't thought about the lottery much. Then lunchtime hit. Alexis had finished just in time, and had the next few days free, unless something unexpected happened. As she sat down in her usual spot with a few friends, the loudspeaker came to life. The voice was that of Dr. Larson. "Ladies and gentlemen, I will keep this brief. All lottery entries have been made, and the computer has just generated the random number. It is currently searching the database of lottery numbers for the best match. If you will be patient," he said, trailing off. The whole base went quiet. You could have heard cars driving on the nearest road, which wasn't near the base at all, if of course the machinery hadn't been running. Then Dr. Larson spoke up again. "We have a winner," he said, as if he had just stated an observation on the greenness of gras. "I would ask the winner to come immediately to my office for a briefing on procedure," he said, skirting the subject to the great annoyance of the crowds listening. One man in the cafeteria shouted, "Just tell us, you fuckhead," and threw a milk carton at the nearest loudspeaker. "The winner is Harrison, Alexis L. Congratulations," he said and simply hung up. Alexis's friends looked at her in astonishment and jealousy. Alexis just sat there, said nothing, but couldn't help but have a smirk cross her face. And it wasn't going away anytime soon. She had thought it was highly likely that she would be selected, but hadn't been 100% sure. Now she thought that she should never have doubted it. She excused herself from the table and began to make her way to Dr. Larson's office. It took her 10 minutes to get there, but when she did, she was ushered right in by his secretary. She sat down in a chair facing his desk. "Congratulations, Miss Harrison, you won the lottery. You get to be the first human being to travel backwards in time." "Thank you, Dr. Larson." "Yes, well, tomorrow you will be fully briefed, get some elementary training, and such. The day after, you get to go back. You will get to choose the point in time and the place to which you wish to go back to. You can give that to the text tomorrow. Do you have any questions?" he asked, serious and unemotional as usual. "No, sir." "Well then," he said, and a smile, the first she had ever seen on his face, grew across his face. "I will see you tomorrow. And congratulations again. Please subscribe my channel for the next part. And visit my Patreon page for early access.